What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 18 tight end rankings for week 7 of the NFL season. I've already gone through all the other positions: running backs, wide receivers, defenses, and quarterback. My final set here with the tight end position. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Any questions, drop them down below. But let's just dive right into tier 1 here. And I have 3 tier 1 tight ends. 3 tight ends I feel very confident starting in my lineup here for week 7. We're going to start off with George Kittle taking on the Chiefs. At this point, he is by far and away the tight end 1, averaging 17.3 PPR points per game. He is averaging 3.5 points per game more than the tight end 2. He has put up 20 plus PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been dominant. He's consistently getting into the end zone. I don't think the production is super sustainable because, like I said, he is getting into the end zone a lot. There are going to be games where maybe he struggles. Debo, Ayuk have the big performances, but with how hot he is right now, I don't see how you don't rank him as the number 1 tight end. And then in that same matchup, my tight end 2 is going to be Travis Kelce going up against the Niners here. He's really turned his season around in the last couple of weeks. His last 2 games, he has put up 15.9 and 16 PPR points. The target volume is up, 19 total targets in the last 2 weeks. So with Rashee Rice going down, they're definitely going to have to force feed Travis Kelce more. So I definitely think he's kind of, pushed himself back up into like that high-end tight end 1 area. And then my third and final tier 1 tight end, Brock Bowers, going up against the Rams. He is the tight end 2 in points per game on the season. In his last 2 games, he has put up 23.7 and 16.1 PPR points. He has commanded 22 total targets in those 2 weeks. I think with the Devontae Adams trade, Brock Bowers is probably going to be the number 1 target here for the Raiders. It's not a good offense. He's not going to have great quarterback play, but Brock Bowers is a truly elite talent at the tight end position, and I think he's going to be a high-end tight end 1 rest of season. Now, pivoting into tier 2, only 2 tight ends here. The first one is going to be Trey McBride going up against the Chargers, and he has commanded at least 6 targets in every game, so he has showcased a pretty solid target floor. He is the current tight end 3 in points per game. And I will say that if Marvin Harrison Jr. is out for this one, I'd bump Trey McBride up into tier 1. If he's like locked in as the clear-cut number 1 target, even if his offense struggles, I think the volume's going to be there. So if there's no Marv, then McBride would be tier 1 for me. If Marv is playing, then Trey McBride would stay here leading tier 2. And then my other tier 2 tight end is going to be Evan Ingram. First game back after leaving week 1 with injury. He comes in, commands 10 targets, catches all 10 of those for 102 yards. I mean, that type of game coming off of injury, you got to give Evan Ingram his respect here as like a mid-tier tight end 1 play. Now, looking at a larger tier 3, going to start off this tier with Tucker Kraft. He's coming off a pretty rough week 6 where he only put up 3.5 PPR points, but that was after he had huge boom weeks, week 4 and week 5, 17.3 and 24.8 PPR points. There's a lot of weapons on this Packers offense. This was the Romeo Doubs game. Jaden Reed's obviously going to have his. Christian Watson had a solid game. So Tucker Kraft was kind of the odd man out, but he showcased the ceiling. Luke Musgrave's injured. Tucker Kraft is having great usage. His route participation is really strong. I think he's still very playable as like a solid mid-tier tight end 1. Then after Kraft, I'm going with David Njoku going up against the Bengals. And I talked about David Njoku as a buy low before the Amari Cooper trade. I think he's going to be an even better fantasy option rest of season after Cooper's gone. Now, I could talk about him, season long with the upside of Jameis Winston potentially coming in, but just focusing on this specific week, it's still going to be Deshaun Watson. This Browns offense is probably going to be terrible. They're probably not going to put up a ton of points, but it's likely going to be a trailing game script. The passing volume has been pretty decent here for Deshaun Watson just because they are trailing and they need to move the ball right. So for David Njoku here, I really think he is going to be a target funnel without Amari Cooper. I think he is going to be their number 1 target. I think we're going to see him just get peppered with opportunities from Deshaun Watson. Now, is he going to be super efficient? The touchdown upside's not going to be there. But I think at the tight end position, you're looking at some of the guys behind him. It's not like they're super strong options. So David Njoku, I believe in the talent. If the opportunities are there, I think he's going to be a fine fantasy option. And I think his ceiling is very, very high rest of season. Because if we end up seeing Jameis Winston just peppering David Njoku with opportunities, I think Njoku could be a legit high-end tight end 1 if Jameis does take over. Then after Njoku, I am going with Sam Laporta going up against the Vikings. In week 6, he had a 52-yard touchdown. The problem is that was his one and only target. So, cool, he had a decent fantasy day, but he was one target away from having a goose egg in your lineup. He is maxed out at 5 total targets in a game, and that was week 1. So I don't really know what to make of Sam Laporta here. I do think this is a decent spot against the Vikings because they are 2.5-point underdogs. Could be a trailing game script, some extra passing volume, but he has been very disappointing. And even though he had the long touchdown, like, I'm not super optimistic about him moving forward. I still think he has that touchdown upside, but definitely not a great spot here for Laporta. Then I have Dallas Goedert going up against the Giants. There's no guarantee he plays this week. He left week 6 with a hamstring injury, but I think if he does play, this is just where he's going to slot in as like a back-end tight end 1. With A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith back, definitely caps his overall upside. And then the final guy in this tier, Dalton Kincaid. I think the Amari Cooper trade's probably a hit to him, but it's not like Kincaid was breaking away as the number 1 target anyway. He has seen 6+ targets in 3 straight weeks. Like I said, I think of Amari Cooper coming in, he's going to be the clear number 1. This is kind of just where Dalton Kincaid is settling in. He's definitely not that like elite upside option a lot of people thought he could have been heading into the year. Just more of like a back-end tight end 1. Should have some touchdown upside on a good Bills offense. And then pivoting into tier 4, going to start off this tier with Kyle Pitts. Not overly high on Pitts. I still think the volume is concerning. His target share is not great, but he's put up 70+ yards in back-to-back games. Maybe he's starting to build on something here. Certainly playable as a back-end tight end 1. Then I have Pat Freiermuth. Looks like they might be getting a quarterback change. Russell Wilson coming in for Justin Fields. Now, personally, like just for the Steelers from like a real-life perspective, I think they should be sticking with Fields. Fantasy-wise, obviously Fields is a much better quarterback option. But for Pat Freiermuth specifically in these weapons, like it's been fine with Fields in the grand scheme of things. Like he's in like that fringe tight end 1 area. But I do think it could be better. So maybe Russ coming in kind of helps him. Probably more passing volume. Obviously, Russ isn't going to be rushing, as much as Justin Fields was. So Pat Freiermuth, maybe we see a nice game here. And then the last guy in this tier, Hunter Henry, definitely a riser. Had a decent game with Drake May at quarterback in week 6. 3 for 41 and a touchdown. His usage is solid as long as he can get decent quarterback play. I do think it kind of puts him into like this fringe tight end 1 area. And then tier 5, I mean, these are kind of like your dart throws. You don't feel great about playing them, but desperate times. So starting off here with Dalton Schultz going up against the Packers. I was pretty low on Schultz heading into the season, but even I didn't think he'd be this bad through 6 weeks. Did not have a good game, even with Nico Collins out, but he did command 8 targets. So if he's seeing that kind of volume, like he's bound to have a decent game at some point. So Dalton Schultz, I think he's a fine option with no Nico Collins. Then I have Zach Ertz going up against the Panthers here. He is the tight end 16 in points per game, but he has done that without getting into the end zone. So probably due for some positive regression there in the touchdown department. Obviously the passing, touchdown volume isn't going to be a ton there for the Commanders, and a lot of that's going to Terry McLaurin, but I still think he's fine. He's had a decent floor. You could do worse than Zach Ertz. Then I have Cade Otton going up against the Ravens. He has put up 7+ PPR points in his last 4 games. It's kind of tough that like 7+ points is seen as like a positive, but that's really where we're at here at this point with the tight ends. So Cade Otton, you could do worse, just like with Zach Ertz. And then for these Ravens tight ends, Isaiah Likely is my tight end 17. Mark Andrews is my tight end 18. Both these guys had a 60% route participation in week 6, and that is not good. Like typically that is not startable. You're just kind of hoping that either of these dudes can get into the end zone. The Ravens are going to put up points. Bucs offense has looked solid. Maybe it's a shootout. And like I said, you're just hoping these guys can score a touchdown. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 18 tight ends. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Any comments, drop them down below. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.